Hey everybody, Tony D with another hot take. This is my third take of this. Um, Little Joan keeps interrupting me because she keeps seeing something outside the door, so you may hear her barking in the background. All right, go calm down, Little Joan. You made yourself all upset for nothing. Anyhow, we got to talk about Trump's speech and, sorry, Corey, the coronavirus. Trump's speech was perfectly fine. Um, But I think there's one thing that a lot of people don't want to talk about or speculate about, but I think we kind of have to consider it. Um, Trump, when he gives speeches, he does either his off the cuff speech, which is his preferred mode. He's very good at that. It's always very fun and exciting. But the other kind of speech, scripted speech, he's a little more stilted. He was more than a little more stilted last night. I think Trump has the coronavirus. The reason I think that is because he was trying very hard not to cough. And 2 times he did. And it was sort of like one of these blah, 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 like that. Not quite that loud, but if you watch the speech again, you'll see him do that. It's upsetting that he would have it. Obviously, he's going to keep it under wraps, which I can understand why he would want to. He doesn't want anybody to know in the world that the president of the United States is ill, and I think chances are better than awesome that he'll be fine eventually. However, he is in a bit of a danger zone with the virus. He's not elderly. I don't think he has any kind of compromised immune system. I think he's actually kind of fairly healthy, except that he's kind of overweight and he doesn't really take care of himself. But beyond that, he seems pretty spry. But see, in the speech, he wasn't his spry self. Now, that might be that he's a little run down. Things have been crazy recently. The virus has probably got him very upset. I mean, this is a big deal. This is a big deal. And he's been told the real deal. He's been told how this virus spreads and that it is likely there's very little we can do. And this is coming out in the media, especially with Pence. Pence has been saying, we can only mitigate it. And the fact that Pence is running the response, I think that's a sign, too, that Trump is sick. I think he put him in charge specifically because, he's got it. That being said, if that's true, and this is the evidence that he doesn't have it, everyone around him would get it, too. Maybe the plan is Trump gets better, Pence takes up the slack for a couple of weeks while Trump gets better, but still doesn't really slow down his appearances too much, or maybe slows him down sort of subtly, just doesn't schedule anything. And then, hopefully, by the end of the cycle, which would be about 2 weeks, he's fine. Maybe a little sooner because they're pumping him full of, I'm sure, state-of-the-art space-age medicine that's keeping him healthy. And then, by that time, Pence will be sick and Trump will just go back to doing what Trump does, bossing everybody around. Of course, by that time, the rest of his staff and everybody around him will be sick and it'll just be him in the White House making calls and doing stuff. But either way, hopefully Trump is fine because I couldn't think of anything worse to happen in the history of humanity than to have Trump die in office now. That would just be an absolute disaster on so many different fronts. I know some of you out there who can't stand Trump might think that's a good thing, but it's an incredibly bad thing. Look, I wasn't a fan of George W. Bush. I thought he was the worst president to ever hold the White House. But, the idea that George W. Bush would die in the middle of a crisis, like, few days after September 11th or something, that would have been very bad for the country. You know, it just is not the thing you want to have happen. You don't want that to happen during a crisis when a leader is trying to lead, regardless of whether they're good at leading or not so great. You know, I didn't think George Bush was a very good leader, but, you know, it's September 11th, he did okay. I mean, again, during a crisis, what else are you supposed to do? You know, Bush got up and stood on rubble and made a bunch of promises. Maybe you could argue that's what the nation wanted to hear, and people liked him in those moments. Right now, Trump is doing something very similar, I think. The problem is, I think we have, a media that's against him and a Democratic Party that's very much against him, regardless of the situation. He called for unity, called for everybody working together for the virus, and I think that's what we need to do. So for your part, try to stay home as much as possible. If you haven't stocked up, you probably are out of time. At this point, you should think about inventorying your food supply, see how long you're going to last, and then order stuff on Amazon, I think is your best bet. And I think the stuff you should order on the Amazon should be food in sealed packages. So when the Amazon box arrives, you can continue with containment protocols. And that would be open the box in an area. Now, keep in mind, the virus can live on surfaces for up to, I've heard now, 12 hours. So if the Amazon guy delivers your box, he may be sick, or the person who packaged the box may be sick. You don't know. You have to assume it's a contaminant. So take the box, and this is what I would do. This is what I have done. I've taken the box, I put it in a spot. In this case, I put it on my kitchen table, which has a tablecloth on it that I can wipe down. So my plan is I put the box on the table, I open the box, I take out each item at a time, and I wipe it down with a Clorox wipe thing with disinfectant on it. And I disinfect every item in the box, setting the contents of the box, the containers, away from the box. When I'm finished, I take the Amazon box, I bring it outside to the trash, throw it away, go back in, and then I decontaminate everything that touched the box and everything that I touched after I touched the box, like the handles on the doors. So I go back, I do the handles on the doors, I do the table real nice, and my pathway from the front door. And I'd probably touch like a doorknob or the door or whatever. That's pretty decent containment. You can wear a face mask with it if you're worried about the dust particles. Chances are there won't be any dust on a new box, but you never know. So if you do that, order some food from Amazon. Hopefully they'll still deliver. Now, you may get in a situation where they'll be late by a day or two, but you have to order out a couple of weeks. I just ordered some stuff. It's not going to be here, I think, for like 10 days, but I'm stocked. I can last probably on the food I have now. I probably could stretch it out at least a month, maybe more. Kind of hard to tell. I mean, I don't normally buy this much food. I definitely bought extra. My problem is I didn't buy all the right stuff. And there's certain things that are hard. There's certain things that are hard to buy. Like you can't really buy cheese and meat through the mail. It's kind of tough. You can, but I'm trying to get stuff that's not. I don't want to just order up a Hickory Farms basket or something. I'm trying to order like a block of cheese, and I don't want to spend like $1 gazillion on it, but I also don't want the cheese to spoil before it gets here. So it's tough. I mean, Amazon has a pantry service where you can basically order food from the grocery store and they just drop it off. Again, I think you probably want to stick to food items that are in a jar or in a case or in a box, because odds are it was processed and put in there months ago, and you won't have to worry about the actual food being contaminated. The problem, I like to have deli meats and cheeses on hand to make a sandwich. I can't do that now. I'm just not going to do it for. And some of you are saying, "Good for you," because that stuff's not good for you. It's fine. Anyhow, I'm off of deli meats once I run out of my current run here, and because at that point I will switch over to whatever I got in a can, or whatever I can get out of a tube or a package or whatever, and that stuff's vacuum packed, so it should be bacteria free. Is my conclusion. And again, I'm not an expert. Don't quote me on anything, but this is what we do in a time of crisis. Crazy things? No, it's not crazy. But look, you need to stock up. But like I said, now's probably a bad time to go out at this point. The virus is definitely out there if you're in New Jersey. Another report, the state of Ohio just announced that they suspect they have 100,000 cases. I don't know how they arrived at that number, and people are at one point skeptical because it just seems to be a guess on the part of the administration there. But it's very possible because I think what they're doing is they just estimated it by 1% of the population is probably infected at this point. But, 100,000 people across Ohio, it's a pretty big number. And, if they could test enough people, they could figure that out. But I think at this point, if that's true, we're certainly beyond the testing stage where testing's going to matter. The only people we're going to really need to test are people who are in such bad shape, they're going to need to be tested whether or not they have coronavirus because they need hospitalization. So I think we're at that point, probably, or if not, maybe in a week or two, we'll be at that point. So it is likely that coronavirus is in the area, in the air, and around you. So take precautions. Wash your hands. Wear a face mask if you got it. And look, people on TV, the face mask's not going to do anything, blah, blah, blah. Everybody in China is wearing a face mask right now. They're all still wearing face masks. Yeah, and granted, you need the expensive ones, and the expensive ones are all gone. Still wear the cheap ones. I got to imagine it's some level of protection. I'm going to wear it. I'm going to wear it outside the house until this is over. So, until the state of New Jersey bangs on my door and says, it's now illegal to wear a face mask. Your face mask is wrong, and we're going to take it from you if you don't stop wearing it. I'll wear it. I don't care. I think it's fine. It's not hurting me. And it may give me some level of protection. So, I actually started wearing gloves outside the house as well. But, look, still don't panic. Still can't panic. You just got to start using common sense. The schools are going to close if they haven't closed already for you. So you're going to have to make arrangements to have your kids home if you have kids, or stay home yourself. If you're in a position where you could take off for the next 2 months, I would do it. Or if you could work at home for the next 2 months, I would do it, because it's going to be the next 2 months that are crucial. And we may peak. One model has us running out of hospital beds by May 1st, which to me is about when this thing will probably peak, sometime in May, sometime early May. Maybe we'll get a handle on it earlier and it'll peak sooner, and that would be great. But I think that's what we're shooting for. And then probably by the end of May into June is when it'll be over, and people will start to recover and go back to work and say, oh my God, look at what happened, who died, and who didn't die, or whatever. Most people will not die. People with compromised immune systems and who are very elderly, they're at risk. But I met a guy today, and he's got some medical issues. I said, you should stay home. You should stay home. during this, and he was like, you know what, I think maybe you're right. So I hope he just stays home. Um, you know, it's it's it should be treated seriously. Uh, People are talking about Italy versus South Korea in this crisis. I think South Korea, they've said they've got a handle on it. And that may be true. Italy, they certainly do not have a handle on it for a few different reasons. I think part of it is cultural, because I think for the South Koreans, when you tell the South Koreans, hey, everybody, we're all going to stay home, and this is your authority figure saying stay home for a month or whatever, the South Koreans go, oh, okay. Uh, but I think when you're more Italian and they say, oh, tomorrow the government's going to announce you can't leave the province, everybody panicked and got into a car and like took off and like, screw this, I'm not staying here. I think we're more like the Italians in America because we're too used to doing whatever the F we want. So we don't like to listen to authority, especially when it tells us we can't go anywhere. So I think it's going to be really hard to have a quarantine in the United States. Really hard. But, or statewide, I should say. I think if you do a statewide one too early, people will try to flee to other states just to be out of the quarantine zone. I think it's going to be countrywide. I think it's going to be worldwide. It's going to be the United States quarantines itself for a few months, and then it'll be over. After a few months, it should burn through the population, and then it'll be about picking up the pieces and say, oh my God, that was horrible. What are we going to do about next time? And hopefully people will, hopefully we'll have some solutions by the end of this, and we should definitely have a vaccine of some kind for coronavirus. It's very strange to me that people were, especially the World Health Organization, were putting out all these posts about, well, don't call it the Wuhan virus, or don't call it a foreign virus, as Trump said, because, that's racist. It's not racist. The Ebola virus is named for the river where the Ebola virus broke out. Spanish flu was named after, Spanish people. It started in Spain. Look, Wuhan virus is not racist. It's just not racist. It's not racist to call it. If you call it the Kung flu, that's a joke, and you might say, well, that's a little racist, but I don't think so. I think it's just a joke. I thought the Kung flu was funny, but it's not funny to people who are deathly ill, so I don't think that joke's going to work. But, it's a waste of time to even discuss that. So don't get caught up in, the Wuhan virus. It's a coronavirus to me. That's what I've been calling it. CV, as they say. And by the way, they're censoring videos on YouTube that talk about the coronavirus. If you mention coronavirus, some guys have been calling it CV in their videos, you are immediately demonetized, and they put a coronavirus link underneath your video, like you see here, which is stupid. I mean, look, I'm not purporting to be an expert. I'm not a doctor. I just have an opinion, and I talk about things. So there you go. I think as long as you're not misrepresenting yourself, YouTube has no business putting any labels on your video. But that's YouTube. They want to censor everything. So stay safe. Wash your hands. Stay home as much as possible, and we'll get through this. Keep your kids home if you can. They're going to close the schools anyway soon, and a lot of kids, they just do homework online these days anyway. So most stuff that can be done online will be done online, and people who can stay home and do work online should absolutely do that. And those of you who can't, well, you got to see if your job is even going to, the business you work at is even going to be open. I would say if you're a boss, close down. Think about close, or think about it at least. Think about when you're going to close, because I think it's going to be about 2 months before things get back in working order, and that could be pretty devastating for a business. But it depends on the kind of business you have, and better safe than sorry, as they say. So good luck to everybody in fighting the coronavirus. I hope you don't get sick, but if you do, I hope your case is very mild. Good luck to us all.